Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today you are joining me and my wife on the back of the quad as we take a morning ride out to Port Erin via the A36, also known as the Slock Road, on the Isle of Man. You can see here we're being followed by what I think is a Morgan or something like that. We'll shortly be overtaken. This is a surprisingly steep incline, and I didn't want to absolutely thrash the quad up here with both of us on. It just wasn't necessary. So we're being nice and safe as we head up the mountain to basically come back south down the island towards Port Erin on the west side. You can see he's gearing up and he's gone out to the centre there just to have a peek, and he's getting ready to go past us. I think possibly on the next bend. I think he gets a bit frustrated that we're going so slow, which really we're not. We're doing quite a good speed considering there's two of us on there, but obviously safety is paramount. So yeah, here he goes for the overtake now, if I remember correctly. Once he's out of the way, we continued up to essentially a bit of a tight bend at the top of the side of the mountain, and it has a wonderful incline kind of all the way up to the top, where you then have a fantastic view of the south of the island, which I will show some of the drone shots later on. And there are some stunning properties along this road, and actually if you look to your right here you have a great view over to sort of Castletown, Colby, Port St Mary, to sort of the east of the island. A fantastic road. This is one of the de-restricted roads on the island, so you do get to see a lot of nice vehicles travelling along here. On this occasion I don't think we saw any groups or clubs, but typically you'll see, you know, Porsche groups or Aston Martin clans, whatever terminology you want to use, which is quite fun to see. And obviously you get motorbikes any time of year here, but we are approaching TT season, so there are generally more on the road than usual, and not just the locals. So you can see just in the distance there's actually a couple of vans or white vehicles that have just crossed. So that's essentially where we're heading up to, and we'll turn off at that corner. We didn't on this occasion have our headsets linked up, so there's very little in terms of audio other than wind noise on this particular trip, which is why I've chosen to do a proper voiceover on this occasion. There's not a huge amount to talk about. It's just very visually stunning, this ride, and it's one of the first ones we've done on the island. You can see it's very clearly signposted, and there are some well trodden paths here of motocross bikes and off-road bikes that will use this. Obviously there's no harm in taking a quad bike down here. You just have to be mindful that you are going to do slightly more damage potentially, depending on the season. There's a little way from me there, just as we were doing a fair old speed into that bump, and I had to remember that Chloe can't actually anticipate the bumps as well as I can because she's on the back. We've now got a choice of tracks here. I think I went for the slightly less bumpy one initially. Whoa. Yeah, another excitable vocal expression from me there. You're starting to sort of, you know, come up that incline that you've been drawing around on the road against, and it's starting to get really stunning. But it's just as you go over the crest here that you start to see sort of Bradda in the distance, Port Erin, Castletown, etc. I can imagine on a wet day this track being even more fun than it was. Of course it was very dry. It's been very dry here for the last month or so, which is why it's extremely dusty and rocky, or dry on the ground. We can now start to see Port St Mary on the left there of your screen, and you can see there are many routes here. The one to the right was extremely deep, and I didn't really want to bottom out the quad on that, even though it does have a skid plate. It's just not something I'm that bothered about. If it was wet, the ground would be a bit more forgiving and it'd be more fun to go down there, of course, but on a dry day I wouldn't advise scraping and skidding along your skid plate, because it's going to do some damage, especially if you come across a big rock, which this place is littered with.
Nice view, isn't it?
I know, I've just been looking.
Yeah.
And now we have one of our drone shots for you, which shows the Calf of Man in the very back of the shot, and then Port Erin sort of central, and Bradder Head to the right hand side of the screen. Fleshwick Bay as well, I think, is just round the right hand side of the screen. It's absolutely stunning day, and the sea was so calm. There was pretty much zero wind, which for anybody who's familiar with the Isle of Man, that's quite nice to have a zero wind day. And then we're back on the ground here, carrying along this rocky path. We've got some hedgerow to the left and some farm buildings and some under construction.
Imagine when it's wet, it's really fun too.
Yep, that was me repeating what I was just saying earlier about if it was a wet ground that you were on, or a wet day, this would be even more fun. The ride becomes more fun, but the visuals are less good because your visibility's poorer, but you know, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? I was really conscious on this day to avoid hitting any sharp rocks, just because how dry it was. I kind of had this vision in my head that we would be having a slash tyre or something dreadful like that and just be stuck up the mountain. I don't actually have a spare tyre, I just have a puncture repair kit, so that would be pretty disastrous for us. In terms of how long this route is, I would guess it's probably about a mile or so, if not maybe a mile and a half long, and it's one of the circular routes that you can do around the island. There's also a mountain biking route which is known as Southern Comfort, which is a circular route again around the south of the island, covering sort of Port St Mary as well. But in terms of off-roading specifically, and something that's a greenway or a green lane, you are somewhat limited down south. I think there I had some rocks hitting the underside of the foot guards, and I was just checking they weren't stuck and about to again slash the tyres. So there's a gate just to the bottom there which you do have to open to go out, and then that leads you down into eventually Port Erin. Here's just a lovely aerial shot of the trail looking back towards the Slock Road that we joined at. You can just see that in the distance. There's sort of an S shape. And then if you look very carefully, you can see the quad and myself right in the middle of the screen, and then Chloe stood on that rocky section on the right side of your picture. You can just see her helmet against the trees there. Just taking some pictures of the landscape. Well, I'm pleased to be back, and I'm pleased that I've been able to put another video out, albeit I didn't mic myself up for this particular trip. It was the two of us on there. Chloe doesn't want to hear me rambling to myself as we're travelling around, but I do have another video coming out soon, which will be kind of a high-speed trails version when I'm on my own and having a bit of fun on some of the plantations. So we'll see you soon for that one. Thanks very much.